When you get to be a certain age, sometimes you think a lot about convertibles, whether it's the classic convertible Corvette, or maybe a newer convertible Mustang, or maybe even a convertible antenna. Wait, what? That's right, the convertible antenna. And we're going to talk about that coming up next on the World Beyond 7.121. The idea of the convertible antenna is to have something that you can easily reconfigure in the field as you need it, or maybe you're experimenting with different designs and you want to see how they work, and you'd really rather not build a separate antenna for each one of these. So I took what started out life as the 40-meter doublet kit from DX Engineering, and I did purchase this myself. It comes with 300 ohm balance line, a center T, wire, and in insulators, which I'll get to in just a minute. So I assembled the first part of the kit rather loosely, and that was to simply connect the balance line to the center T. And then I leave these nuts and washers just a little bit loose. So if I want this to be a 40-meter doublet, which again, that's what this started out to be, it is provided with ring terminals, but in this case I'm going to actually use spade lugs. So I simply feed the wire through the strain relief holes, go through this way, back out, leave a little extra slack to bend the wire over, and then over and under the washer and nut. And then you can tighten this down. So I'm leaving this nut just a little bit loose to show you that the strain relief will keep the wire from coming out. So you don't have to be concerned about using a spade lug instead of a ring terminal. And then of course, you just simply do the same thing on the other side. Again, down through this side, and under the other washer. And then once you tighten the nuts down, you have the complete doublet with the end insulators already attached to the wire. And I do want to say just a word or two about these end insulators. They're not your typical egg insulators, which is why I like them, because you can actually route the wire through it and just simply loop it back, tie it through per their directions, and that wire will not come out. The advantage of that is that you can actually remove these fairly easily by simply unbending the wire and taking them out, so you can reuse these as well. Although I have found that it's really better if you're going to have multiple designs, doublet type designs, that you simply get a pack of extra one of these and just put them on the wire ready to go. So again, that's our complete doublet. Now, of course, the wire can be any length depending upon what you're trying to do. Maybe you want to build a Zepp, in which case you'd only have one side of this connected. Maybe you're going to build an extended double Zepp, which will actually give you a significant gain and some nice patterns on whichever band you build it for. But of course, the really nice thing about an antenna built like this is that it's a very good multi-band antenna, being that it's fed with balance line. So the fact that this is a 40-meter doublet, or perhaps I build it as an 80-meter or 160-meter, whatever band you build it for, it will actually then work quite efficiently on all the HF bands above it. So it's a very good all-around antenna. But again, depending on the length and how you configure it, you can do some really, really interesting tests with the different patterns. For example, if you happen to have your own ladder line and a source for wire, you can still use the same kit and just simply attach the ladder line on the outside, and then as I've done here, I've used some plastic tie wraps to secure it. And this one just happens to be a 44-foot doublet that I built some time ago. The 44-foot doublet actually has some interesting patterns, so and it can also work very well as a vertical antenna if you turn it on its side and feed it in the middle. So that's an interesting antenna to look up. Again, there are many, many, many different wire designs you can try. One of my favorite antennas is the wire loop. It's very, very tough to beat a wire loop for low noise and gain as compared to a resonant dipole. It also works very well on all bands on its fundamental frequency and above. Now, on its fundamental frequency, it does tend to be a bit of an NVIS antenna, meaning that the pattern tends to go up. But as you go up in frequency, the takeoff angle drops and the gain increases and makes it a very good gain antenna. Works the same way as far as connecting it to the convertible antenna base, as I call it. Instead of having the two different sections of wire, we just simply have one continuous loop with the lugs on it. We can plug those into the center T and off we go. So if you have at least 3 supports, a loop is a fine antenna. Again, works well with this hardware, easy to experiment with. If you already have the wire, if you already have ladder line and you have plenty of scrap wire, you don't necessarily need to buy a doublet kit. This is the center T, the end insulators, and all the hardware, so you can just use your own wire to build whatever convertible antenna you'd like. Again, I do want to reiterate that I have no connection to DX Engineering. I just happen to like this hardware. It works very well both as a convertible antenna and as a permanently installed antenna. I found it to be quite rugged, and it certainly works well in this installation where, again, we're just going to swap wires to reconfigure the antenna however we'd like. There are lots and lots of other center insulators out there. There are lots of end insulators available, many different types of wire. Just choose whatever you're comfortable with. I happen to like this, and it's very easy to work with and works very well. Now, I just want to say just a word, because I know the obvious question is going to be, hey, I like to use coax. Well, that's absolutely fine, and you can get center Ts that work very much the same way. DX Engineering sells one, but again, there are many others, which will allow you to feed coax in here. I prefer to use balance line because it gives me a much greater set of options for building an antenna, and a lot of them have gain over a resonant dipole. So that's it. It's the convertible antenna. It has nothing to do with putting the top down and letting the wind blow through your hair on a warm day, or blow through the lack of hair in my case. But it is an excellent way to reconfigure an antenna in the field to be whatever you'd like for it to be at any time, simply by changing out the wire and leaving the rest of it intact. It also allows you to quickly experiment with different designs without having to build a whole new antenna. Thanks for joining me. I'm Brian, WB9QVR, for the world beyond 7.121.